Yes, hello there and welcome to today's episode of Weekend Rewind. Yes, this is when we put our hands back into the Join Up Dots vaults, swirl it around a bit and find an episode that maybe has got lost in the midst of time. And this is in response to the amount of requests we get from people who say, David, with all the episodes you've released, where should we start? Well, it's very hard to find a place, so we're just going to randomly pick one, and this is today's episode. Enjoy.
When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, good morning to you. It is a freezing cold morning in the United Kingdom. We haven't had many dodgy days this winter, but it's cold. But I feel all warmed up already because the lady on the other end, and I say this a lot, the ladies are getting flirtier and flirtier. And some of the conversation we've had already it's explicit. It's 18 rated. It would go straight into the Art of Charm category and get that big E. If you go onto iTunes, you see well. So it's going to be a good one because she is a lady who I first connected with several years ago, but never got a chance to properly say hello to, which is a bit of a regret, as not only is she a truly lovely individual, but is also based in this little island of ours. Yeah, she's based in rainy Manchester in the United Kingdom, and since working for British Telecom as a call centre trainer, has been on a mission to develop employees everywhere to become the best that they can be and find happiness while they're doing it too. And she certainly seems now to have found her thing after as much struggle as everyone else. As she says, I'd love to be able to say I'm one of those people who is super clever. Actually, I've been speaking to her already, and that's proven. That's proven. I built a successful coaching business easily, but that would be a big fat lie. I spent my first year as a coach taking every course I could get my hands on, which led to massive overwhelm. It became a patchwork quilt of information. A course on blogging, another for WordPress, another on podcasting, then copywriting, but it wasn't cohesive. I wanted courses to help me go step by step so I could focus on what I loved, coaching. So she's done it. She's got there. But how has she managed to blend her years of being an employee into someone who is crushing it, but also being totally themselves and being happy in the process? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the lovely Northern lass herself, very flirty, but we'll keep it all right, kids. Jo Casey. How are you, Jo?
I'm fine. I think it was you doing the flirting. I don't think I was doing any.
You can't flirt at 9:30 in the morning. I just had a bowl of shredded wheat. I come running up here. I can't start flirting at that degree. It was you. You dragged it out of me. You was like a substitute teacher that comes into school. Don't start with the substitute teacher conversation. You know where we're going with that. So no, we're not going to go with the substitute teachers. And if you are a substitute teacher, contact me on Join Up Dots because I've got some questions to ask you. And I can't put them on air, but I'm very, very intrigued. So, Jo, it has been a long time before we connected. Why was it? Were you frightened of me?
Yes, I was terrified. No, it was one of those things. We were just saying before. I kind of assumed we had, just because you were so much in my world, and we'd, we had so many kind of mutual contacts in common. And it was one of those things that actually I don't think I've ever had a conversation with David. So I feel very embarrassed about that, and we are correcting that wrong right now.
We're going for it big time, aren't we? Because not only is it a mutual admiration for the world of the microphone, but it's a kind of, connected history as well, because you started off in a call center. I started off in a call center. You used to do the classic induction training for staff. I did as well. When you look back on it, was that where your desire to start helping people come from, or did you find yourself in the right job? Was it there earlier than that?
Yeah, it was definitely there earlier than that. And obviously, knowing that I was coming on this podcast, I kind of thought, I should probably do a bit of reflecting and think, where does it all come from? And I think it came from a really early age. My parents were both social workers, and my mum had a job like a deputy manager for a residential home for people with learning difficulties. And in those days, back in the 70s, I don't know if it still happens, but we lived in. So we had a flat adjoining the kind of the big centre, and so most of my friends and peers when I was from the age of kind of 1 or 2 right up until I think kind of 12 or 13 were, you know, people who would be considered very different, people who had learning disabilities, but they were my friends. I saw nothing wrong with there being something different about them. And so and obviously my parents were modelled very much the fact that, you know, well, you look after people and everyone's different and everyone has skills and everyone has abilities and that's okay. So that was just part of my DNA almost. This idea that, you know, you help people out if they're in a fix, and you value everybody regardless of who they are and what their skills and abilities are, because everyone's got them.
And different is good, isn't it? Different is good. I say that to every single person. If you, and I've seen that with you. Obviously, I've been stalking from afar because there are rules to this. But when I first looked at your website, your platform, it was very, how can I say, it was kind of non-remarkable. It looked like everything else. But the last time I went on there, I actually said to you, this is like, there's a personality coming out of here. You found that you can be Joe Casey. You found that you can be more effective because you're actually being different. You're being unique. Is that something that you're aware of now?
Yeah, very much so. And I think that mirrors the journey that a lot of people online, and particularly, you know, because I work in the coaching industry, so there are certain things that everybody starts off doing. So we start off using things like words like "live your best life" and stuff like that, which are these phrases that we kind of think, well, every other coach is using that. That must be the kind of thing you say, but it's meaningless. It means absolutely, what does that mean? You know, you have to really get down into, well, how would you help me to do that? And all of those things that people require before they would actually hire you. So, yeah, so I started off, I mean, the very first one that I had me in a suit, kind of doing that sideways on, you know, photograph that photographers get you to do. Just look over your shoulder. Now, I don't wear a suit. Even when I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, I struggled with the whole suit thing because it's just not me. But I felt that there were certain rules that I needed to follow in this unfamiliar online world. And what is quite liberating about failing and failing and failing, because, you know, that's how it feels when you for many people when they're first starting out, is you realise that actually no one's watching.
I say that. There's like, yeah, I agree with you totally. At the beginning, you want it all to be perfect and brilliant, but nobody gives a monkeys. And so it's not until you actually get through a lot of that people start noticing. And then it's the classic, you know, the highlights. They're already seeing the highlights, but they haven't seen the lowlights because that's all been when nobody's paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole idea of, you know, well, what's your message? I don't know. I can help people do this. Yeah, but how do you do it? I don't know. You know, it was all these kind of things that were just blank spaces in my head. I didn't have the knowledge, and partly I didn't have the confidence because it takes, so, you know, you have to feel fairly comfortable with what you're doing to kind of go, you know, this is me. And some people aren't going to like that. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but how honestly, right? And this isn't me trying to seduce you online, because believe me, if I tried, it would work. But how do you think that people would not like you? Because there's nothing to dislike, is there?
Yeah, but, you know, not everybody is going to be a good fit for you, and you will rub people up the wrong way just for being, you know, around. It's not that, you know, I'm out there spouting, you know, Donald Trump-like opinions. And so there you go. They're already, the people who love Donald Trump will instantly just think, oh, I'm not listening to her because I think he's a pretty terrible, scary human right now. And so there's stuff like that you just think, well, actually, that's an opinion, and some people are going to disagree with that opinion, and that's okay. I'm confident enough in myself to kind of go, do you know what? We can disagree on stuff. That's fine. If you're going to start getting nasty about it, then I'm going to kind of block you and stuff. But I'm pretty lucky that I don't have loads of stuff like that. But I think that is the fear. It's the, what if so this is a big thing for people who go online. I'm going to say, I was about to say especially the Brits, I think, but I know Americans who worry about this as well. What will my friends and family think? Because they see me on Facebook and, that they know me, they saw me at Christmas, they see me talking about my kids and stuff like that. But here I am talking about how to build a business or how to build a coaching business, or here I am talking about my new health coaching business, or I've set myself up as a Reiki healer, or, whatever it might be. And suddenly you are being something different to what the people in your world maybe expect you to do. Because it's a kind of a weird thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but most people in my world still don't really get how I run a business online.
I'm in that environment and I still don't understand how you're doing it, Joe. I'll be honest. That is the $1 million question. How are you doing it? How have you got the ability at 9:30 on a Thursday morning to be having these conversations? How have you created that flexibility in your life when you've been so ingrained with the corporate, get there at a certain time, the board meetings and all that kind of stuff? Because that is the big mindset thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big mindset things was I treat this like a business now, whereas I think for the first couple of years it was it's this kind of thing that I'm doing kind of on the side, and I'll make it fit in. Whereas now, I prioritize it, but also I make sure it fits in with the other things that I've got going on in my life. That doesn't always go to plan. Sometimes things happen, like it turns out it was parents' evening yesterday evening, as you already know, and my son hadn't let me know until half an hour before parents' evening started, and I had a call booked in.
Now, you say that. No, you don't just say you had a call booked in
okay.
and then breeze past. Who did you have the call with, and who did you blow out at the very last minute under a banner of unprofessional activity?
I know. It was with you, and it was one of those moments that, like, for the first kind of minute or so, I kind of go into this kind of white hot mortification, and then kind of go, okay, I've just got to, because you've just got to sometimes be flexible with this stuff, and hope that the podcast host that you are going to be doing an interview with the next day is gracious enough to forgive you for the fact that you blew them out for the meeting.
But it's a key point there, and I think that is how things move through as well. Certainly in the online environment, when I started, there was nothing that was going to get in the way of what I was doing. And I remember, and I've told this story a lot, recording 12 back-to-back podcast episodes in one day. I would never do that again. Absolutely not. And I remember recording a couple with migraines where I could hardly see the sort of screen because I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want them to think that I wasn't professional. Now I'm more, I'm happy to say, look, hang on, I'm not feeling very well. Can we reschedule? Because it's not online, is it? It's humans trapped in a computer. And that's the thing. Once you realise that all these people that are doing it have got their backstory, have got their kids to look after, have got their, moments when they suddenly realise, oh, my schedule booking hasn't quite worked and I've got two things in. It is very flexible. And you get to that point, you realise that actually, yeah, Joe can blow me off. Yes, I did walk around the garden kicking the gnomes for 20 minutes. But after that, I let it go and I moved on.
Well, thank you, and please apologise for the gnomes for me.
I didn't like those gnomes anyway. But do you really feel that you are where you are now, or is it the start? And we're going to sort of delve into what you're really doing. But do you feel like now you've got it going and going very well, that actually the possibilities are lining up in front of you?
No, I feel like this is the start. I feel like this past year has been a real kind of everything coalescing and so that it finally started cooking on gas and properly coming together, so that there was proper regular income and proper clients and stuff like that. And I now know, so one of the big things for me, because I also still kind of run workshops, I have do kind of offline stuff as well, and I run workshops, and I have a long-standing associate position, and with that, it's good money when it comes in, but it's always that kind of waiting for the phone to ring or waiting for the email. Can you do these days type of thing? And I do about 6 a year for them. It's nothing kind of, but I remember for a long time that was my idea of how a business worked, a bit like being a freelancer. You kind of have to wait for the phone to ring. And one of the really nice things that has finally kind of clicked into place this past kind of 12 months is that with an online business, you can drive that much more. So I know that I have a group coaching program that I run. I know that if I launch that 3 or 4 times a year, I can almost predict what type of income I'm going to be getting from that. And then if there are certain things that I know if I do X, Y, and Z, then I will be having kind of more intake sessions with clients and then signing up more clients. So that's a really nice position to be in. But that honestly has only been the past kind of 12 months that's kind of come together for me. That was always the dream. And now it's to kind of to build on that.
Right, okay, so let's put our heads together. Let's give some experience to the listeners out there who are thinking of doing the entrepreneurial leap, going for it, but they're used to getting their salary. Every month they turn up and every month it goes into their bank account. Do they have to go through feast and famine cycles in the first year? Or is there a way that they can transition naturally to a point that it's not going to be so dramatic and they're all sharing one can of beans with the kids over a candle?
Well, my approach to it has always been, don't go all out hell for leather and quit your job, follow the dream, unless you have enough income to either kind of carry you forward or you've got something part-time on the side that you can be doing. And that's merely my approach. I know other people would disagree. There are some people who would say, no, actually having a burning platform, having that, you're not going to be able to pay the bills unless you get out there and hustle. That's a really good motivator. For me, that just sends me into terror. And when I get into terror and panic mode, I freeze. I'm not doing my best kind of creative thinking. So for me, what I did is I transitioned and I got a part-time job that I did 3 days a week. And I had this associate position came along, and that kind of gave me the cushion so that it meant that when I was having the leaner months with my coaching business before it all kind of came together, then, I could pay the mortgage and my kids were going to be fed. Because that's the bottom line. That's the important thing. I don't give a stuff about what your dream is. But if your dream means that you're going to get your house repossessed, that dream ain't serving you. Find a different way to make that dream work.
Yeah, we called it, in this show, we called it the slide of faith. And I always say to people, there's 2 ways of doing it. Number one, you either work like mad whilst you're in a job, or the second thing is you look whilst you're in a job at reducing your overheads as much as possible so that you can sort of transition again quite easily. I did a kind of combination of that. I worked like stink. Looking back on it, I didn't think it was, but now I can see how my dots join up. That's a good name for a show. I should bring that in. But
you should do that, yeah.
I'm going to trademark that instantly. But I look at it over the last 20 years or so, I got to a point that literally I was debt free. My house was paid off. Everything was done and dusted before I came to make my entrepreneurial leap. So when I leapt, it wasn't too damaging to me and my situation went on. I could have, numerous months of famine and it wouldn't hurt me. Now, would I do that again now? I probably would do exactly what you're saying. If I was giving the advice to people, I would say, look at ways of building some kind of income stream in. Look at ways of going, how can I get a free telephone each month? I need a telephone. What can I do to just get that paid? And work at chipping away. Because I think a lot of people get struggled with going, right, I'm earning $3,000 a month. I need to have $3,000 replicated. And of course you don't, do you? You can sort of, drop down on your shopping a little bit and drop down on your free mobile phones and your Netflix and all that kind of stuff to get to that point when you keep the lights on. And once you get there, that's the beauty, because you've got so much free time because you're not going to work, but you've got the opportunities to hustle. So I tie it in totally with what you're saying, that now you've got the belief in yourself, you're willing to actually put the key in the engine and start the car and drive to the opportunities where before you were sort of waiting for it to drive to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a mindset shift. And, but also there's, some knowledge that you need there as well. You need to know, well, what are the steps that you do?
Well, let's play a bit of motivational comment now, which I love putting in the show. And this is something that Jim Carrey said. And I've been waiting to actually play this to you, Joe, because I'm intrigued by what you will come out with on this. This is Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Now, with your sort of background, do you need to go for what you will love? Or do you go for the thing that will kind of increase your happiness somehow against the humdrum of the existence that most of us have found ourselves in, going to jobs that we don't really like doing?
I think for me, though, they're one and the same. The doing what I love increases my happiness. But that kind of fits into a wider system of, if I just loved, I don't know. So I decided I wanted to go off and be a Hollywood actor and just announce I was going to move to LA. Well, actually, I may love that, but my overall happiness would decrease dramatically because I would have to leave my family and my kids and my husband, and I'd get there and they go, "You're a 44-year-old woman and we need you to lose like 60 pounds or something ridiculous." And that wouldn't help. So for me, it's always about looking at the whole picture, because it's really easy to follow the thing that you love and go all out to build a business and then find, actually, I've got no time. I'm not spending any quality time with, my family, my friends. I'm not nurturing myself in any other way. So, I haven't got any hobbies because this is what I do. This is my hobby, and now it's become my business. And so your quality of life can very easily diminish because you're putting so much into the thing that you love. So it's always this balance, I think.
But don't you think that with the people out there, I like looking at dustmen or garbage collectors. And one of the reasons I like it, there's no training. They just pick it up as they go along. I love that joke. It never gets boring. But one of the things I like about them as well is the fact that there's a kind of little dustman garbage community going on. And one of them's driving, the others are running behind and stuff. And I look at that and I think, for many, many years, I was in an office environment and I saw no weather. And so that wouldn't be the thing that I loved doing. But I think it would make me happy in the interim. And I believe a lot of what we need to do on this show and your show to get people thinking about it is not going for the, you must love this. It's a kind of, would this make you happy? Does this actually break the routines of what you're trapped in to get you going until you find that thing? And once again, a little sort of slide of faith into happiness before you find the big love.
I really like that idea, and I think it's about squeezing the juice out of life every day. So you have to enjoy the journey. If you're pinning everything on the thing, whether that be I will have my own podcast that has 100,000 downloads a week or whatever, or whatever your thing is, but you forget to actually have a happy life on the way there, then you've missed the point. So, and there's something about, for some of the happiest people I know are the people who have jobs that they don't give a, can I swear on this? They don't give a stuff about.
That wasn't swearing, was it?
No, it wasn't. I changed.
Well, what were you going to say? What did it start with?
It started with an S and ended with a T.
Oh, right, okay.
And had an H and an I in the middle.
I understand what it is. You're like a substitute. Is it substitute? Oh, no, that ends in an E, doesn't it?
Anyway, so if you don't give a stuff about your job, but actually that pays your bills and that gives you enough kind of fuel, if you like, to go and do the stuff that does make you happy. Some of the happiest people I know just have jobs, and it's not a career, it's not a calling or anything like that, because their calling, the thing that kind of really lights them up, is something else. And I think that being an entrepreneur is great, but it's also really hard work. And I know some people who've gone into it because, for example, a friend of mine is a writer, and when we were 15, 16, he was a huge Smiths fan. Remember the Smiths?
I do remember, yes.
Huge Morrissey fan. He would write to Morrissey every single day, and Morrissey would never write back. And so my friend started, he like kind of short stories.
Can I just stop you there? I just thought, Joe, for people out there that don't know the Smiths, can you just sing a couple of their songs for us?
No.
Go on, you can do it.
No. You do it.
Hang the DJ, hang the DJ, hang the... That's the only one I can think of. Oh, Charming Man, that was another one, wasn't it? They were a miserable band, weren't they? I remember listening to them. When I was going through college, everybody loved the Smiths. And so I used to listen to Nick Kershaw and the Thompson Twins because it was happy music. I like happy music, and the Smiths was miserable. But anyway, if you're not going to sing, then we'll get back to your story.
Okay, so... Anyway, so my friend wrote a play based on a Smith song and sent it off. And writing had always been his kind of his solace, his hobby. He loved it. And this play won an award at the Royal Court Theatre in London. And Morrissey wrote back to him. And not only that, him and Morrissey then kind of became almost kind of friends. And Sean then started this writing career. And he was writing for some of the soaps. And he was doing really well. And we lost touch for a few years. And there was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years later that I bumped into him. He was, from the outside to me, he had it made. He was making really good money. We were all still struggling and poor. And he was doing this amazing glamorous thing. And I remember getting drunk with him one night and him saying, I miss just writing for fun. I miss the fact that, there's a deadline on what I'm doing now. It had sucked the joy out of the thing that he loved.
I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand that totally, because what you want to do is do the thing that you would do for nothing because it's just fun to do. And once it becomes a business, and I've been very aware of that with this show, that I'm very much nailed down to the fact that it's under my control. And so I turn off my computer and I walk away from it and nobody can get me, because I was very into Tim Ferriss for a while and his 4-hour work week. The thing that I remember big time on that was how many times you paint yourself into a corner. And in all businesses, you should make yourself near the door so you can walk away from it. And so as I'm doing this, I don't think I'm ever going to lose the fun of it, because I've maintained, how can I say, that sort of balance between what I have to do and what I want to do. And it's already profitable. I think that once I hand over control to people and they start saying, right, you've got to do another 4 episodes on a Wednesday and you've got to do that, then you lose it somehow. Do you think with what you're doing, you are a control freak like me, so you can already see the issues, and so you're not going to get into that same situation like Morrissey's, mate?
I'm absolutely a control freak. I hope in the good way, but this is my business. And one of the things that I kind of thought about it was, well, I've done the working for other people. And so if I'm going to be working for myself, then I want to be a good boss to myself. And there is that, one of the important things for me is like, well, does it make sense? Does it feel in integrity, which is a very coaching word, but does that feel good to me? Do I feel like, that's something that I want to be doing? That, I get approached, you must do as well. I get approached to do joint ventures or have people on as guests on the show, and you just think, no, you're not a good fit, and you're maybe got a different style and you're going about things a different way. That doesn't feel good. Now, it may make sense on one level. I'm sure if I had an online business manager say, this person's got a really big profile and they could do really good for your show. But actually, if it's going to be a rubbish conversation, or it's going to be loads of hassle, or I just don't think it's going to be something that fits in with what I'm wanting to do with my business, then I'll say no. And that's been one of the really nice aspects that's also come in this past year, is the fact that I'll say no to a lot more things.
But if you say no,
I've got a much clearer vision of where I want to take things. Yeah,
that's right. If you say no enough, it allows space for the big yeses. And I'm total believer in that. The super yeses that shoot you on. And at the beginning, I think I said no to a lot of stuff because I was frightened of proving my worth somehow. And now, you know, I told you a couple of things before that we started recording about podcasting, and you went, oh my God, you know, I never knew that. I didn't think that that kind of knowledge was worthwhile, so I didn't sort of share it with the world. Now, a lot of the time, I get these opportunities. Do you get that opportunity, Joe, comes through maybe 3 or 4 times a week to do those naked podcaster calendars? Did you ever get those?
No, they don't approach me, but I can see why they're approaching you.
Well, I keep on turning it down because I've got a very small microphone, and I'm not happy with what could cover me.
It's what you do with it that matters.
Well, absolutely, and I still haven't mastered that yet. But I'm getting these kind of weird opportunities come through to me, and somebody said to me on a show, and I think this is brilliant advice, that when something comes through to you, if it excites you, but it also confuses you, then don't do it. You know, if it adds to your confusion, then don't do it. And I think that's great advice for everybody. Certainly at the beginning, when they're starting to think about what they want to do, if they're thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm going to go for this because Joe Casey's crushing it and I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to do all that kind of stuff. But actually, you can't understand how to do the first 3 steps, then it's not naturally your thing. It's just going to add to confusion. You've got to be able to at least walk into that room having some kind of base knowledge. So she said that to me, and I think that's brilliant advice. If it confuses you, then don't do it. And I'm not going to do that naked calendar. I'm not. Unless you do it, Joe.
Does it confuse you? Is that where it is?
And I don't do the winter months. I don't want to do the winter months.
Moving on.
Moving on indeed. So yeah, so do you kind of get confused? Do you lay in bed sometimes going, yeah, it's going really well, but I don't know, it just kind of bit confused.
Yeah, and I think there's part of, because I'm pretty I suppose creative when it comes to approaching my business, which can work really well, but I can take on to, or try and keep too many balls in the air. For now.
I didn't go with it.
That.
I promise you. I'm a professional. I let that one pass me.
I know. So one of the challenges for me is, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this, because if you've got that kind of entrepreneurial thing, you tend to be an ideas person. So I can get lots of new, exciting ideas and kind of go, oh, I think I'll do that, and I think I'll do that, and I think I'll do that. And actually one of the challenges, but one of the things that's really worth it, is to assess those ideas and kind of go, oh, okay, is that idea actually going to add to something? Is that something I can put on the back burner? Or would that take me in a totally different direction? Now, could I spend the next 3 months pursuing that idea, which would mean I would neglect the things that I've got in already? So there's something about also having your discipline built in, so that you can still do the stuff even when there's a bit of you going, I don't want to do that today. I don't want to, edit podcasts or, write a blog post or something like that. Some of the stuff that you may be not loving, to go off and do this new, shiny, exciting thing. And so it's being able to have the discipline to not confuse yourself as well, I think.
So are you at that stage now that you don't do a lot of what you don't love? When you're starting everything, you do a lot of sloggy stuff. And over that period, you get better at doing it. And so you don't have to spend so much time. Are you at that point?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't outsource a lot. I outsource some aspects of my podcast. And I know outsourcing is meant to be the thing that everybody, says it will free up your time. But maybe it's because I'm too much of a control freak. It's, I don't outsource the editing of my podcast because I know what I want to go in there. And it would take me as long, if not longer, to explain to somebody else. And I might as well do it myself because I can do it really quickly now because I'm good at it. I outsource things like show notes because actually I find that really boring. I want to have the conversation, and then someone else can type up the notes of the conversation. So there's stuff like that. Being noting that there's the things that I'm pretty good and I can do that pretty quickly. And then there's also the stuff like, you are never taking that away from me over my you will pry this out of my cold dead hands, because things like doing the interviews, doing the actual coaching calls. I can't imagine myself ever wanting to stop doing the actual one-to-one coaching. Some coaches, when they get really big, and I'm nowhere near at that stage yet, but they hire coaches to almost do the coaching for them. And I kind of think, what's the point of that?
But that's when the scalability comes in, doesn't it? Because what you're doing, you're then coaching those coaches to become you. And so they're still getting the same quality. If I go to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant, I don't expect Gordon to be there all the time. You know, I expect the quality of food to be Gordon Ramsay quality. So why wouldn't I be happy with Joe Casey training somebody up to be Joe Casey? It's like that film Multiplicity. Do you remember that film Multiplicity with Michael Keaton?
I do. That's a bad film.
Oh, it's a good film, you mad woman.
No, it's...
You come on my show and you diss Multiplicity.
I know.
But it was brilliant that he sort of copied himself, but then he copied the copy, and as in like photocopies, the quality got worse and worse and worse until he was sort of not able to control it. But the premise is right, and I think, why can't Joe Casey build a platform that is good? I like it. It engages me, but then train other people. McDonald's do it as well. You know, it's just a franchise. You could be like the McDonald's of coaching.
Now there's a tagline. I think that model works for lots of people. Here's the thing that I think is different for a number of coaches. So the people that I work with tend to be life coaches, health coaches, holistic practitioners. And I think it's Tony Robbins that says, you know, are you an entrepreneur or are you an artist? So if you're an entrepreneur, then you can, you would happily build up your business to the point where you cannot leave it. You could sell that business. Whereas if you're an artist, you're building up a way of generating income and making your living, making a really good living from your art. And so for me, the coaching work that I do, that's my creativity, that's my art. So I've read the E-Myth and things like that, and totally appreciate the theory of it. But I know for me, the whole point of doing this is so that I get to practice my craft, which is the coaching. And that, certainly at the stage I'm at now, I would never want to lose that. And the more I get into this and the more that this kind of grows, the stronger, the more convinced I am of that. I actually thought at one point, I'll do group coaching programs exclusively, and then I won't have to do the one-to-one work, because that, you know, the exchanging your time for money isn't scalable and things like that. But actually, now that I have group programs, it makes me want to do the one-to-one work even more.
It's interesting because I've got a group platform and I see the change in the guys and the ladies there. It's amazing. And they are so cost effective for the attendees. You know, you can do them on a shoestring, but the power of them, because it's the power of crowds and common knowledge base, I think they're brilliant. So, you know, you do both, don't you? You do those as your cost effective.
I do both, and they are great. You know, I have a group program and it's fantastic. I love doing it. And I never want to stop doing it. But I think when I first came into it, I kind of thought I would, I'll do that and get myself to the stage where I'm just doing that, and then I won't have to do that kind of one-to-one. But what I've discovered is I love doing both.
When I started this, it's funny. If you go back to 1987, I remember this distinctly. A chap came on the British television called Jonathan Ross. And I don't know if our American listeners know who Jonathan Ross was, but as soon as he was on the television, I had people coming up to me going, "Oh, you sound just like Jonathan Ross." And for years and years and years, I've had that. So when I started doing the podcast, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I wanted to be a podcast host. I wanted to be a radio host. I wanted to be somebody that communicates and expresses their passions, their desires to the world. And in the early days, I had people all the time saying, "Oh, you should be doing this. You should be doing that." And it was all taking me away from what I wanted to develop. And so I didn't do it. So I just stayed firm on that. And I've just tried to get better and better and better and better at doing what I'm doing. And I do think that if you do choose one thing and do it incredibly well, to the point that people can't deny that you are good. And, you know, I'm getting there. I'm nowhere near what I want to be, but I'm getting there. I do think that's when the true power comes, isn't it? So the fact that you're doing group coaching and online coaching and one-to-one and all that kind of stuff, I can see the scalability being an issue. But I can also lead towards a question, Joe, saying, I'm going to take everything away from you except for one thing that you are going to do better than anybody else out there. What would be your one thing?
Better than anybody else out there? Oh, that's my my coachy side is struggling with that, because my whole kind of philosophy is like, everyone has skills and everyone has, beautiful snowflakes and all of that. I suppose one thing I am very good at, and I do kind of own the fact that I'm very good at coaching coaches to be able to build something and get themselves out there in a way that not only feels good, but is really effective. So it's about this combination of helping them to bring out everything that they have that's unique and really good about them, so that they can develop their own voice and get themselves out there so they stand out, but also in a way that's going to attract their perfect customers. And I am really good at that.
So would that be your super talent? If you ripped open your blouse and you had a big S, would that be written in small letters underneath it?
Yeah, I sometimes refer to it as kind of coaching alchemy. So it's like, I will help you to bring out all the right elements in you, and then we will find the right clients who have all the right elements. And then when you bring those together, something magical happens.
Because it is funny. Well, it's not funny because this is the way that life operates, but it struck me as weird in the very beginning that every single person that I was speaking to had a coach. No matter how successful they were, they had a coach and a mentor. And even people like Tony Robbins, I bet he's got a coach or a mentor somewhere, that just keeps on pushing you on. Now, I touch on this a lot, but it's one of those things that can rocket you forward at a rate of knots, but people are reluctant to spend the money, certainly at the beginning. So they pussyfoot around and they try things and they struggle. I did that, and I've never had a coach once, but fortunately through this role, you tap into lots and lots of people, so you kind of get a multiple-headed coach. Now, did you do the same thing? Did you have a coach and invest in yourself right at the very beginning, or did you do it by sort of struggle to the point that you built it up, that you look back on it now and go, oh God, if I had a coach, I could have done that in 6 months?
No, I did it your way. I did it through struggle, which is ironic, I know, for the job that I do. But I guess I kind of thought, well, I'm a coach, so I know this stuff. So I can do it for myself. And also I'm kind of stubborn. I'm a bit of a control freak. So I wanted to kind of, work it all out. And the also brutal honesty was that for the first couple of years I was running my business, we were really skint. We had no money. My husband was out of work. He'd gone back to college because he worked in the building trade, and the after the recession, the whole building trade was just on its knees. So, I'd not long had a baby. So I'd been off on maternity leave. I was in a job that was part-time. It was, there were some months we were struggling to kind of, not quite put food on the table, but, there were no luxuries. And so the idea of having a coach just seemed too much. Once my business started making money, then I did tentatively invest. So I first of all did kind of booked people for like maybe one-off strategy sessions. I then invested in a bigger kind of mastermind that I joined, and that was with someone called Tara Gentili, who is just fabulous. And now I do have a coach, but it certainly was. I look back and kind of think, there was a lot of years of struggle that had I just been able to come up with the fundage or justify the fundage, maybe that would have made it a lot easier. But I learned my lessons the hard way, and there's something in that as well.
Yeah, but is there? I now think that life is about being easy. I do think that. I think that nature works very easily. I think water flows naturally to where it needs to go, but we just find a closed door and we bash upon it for hour upon hour, where there's an open one 2 feet to the left, and we don't bother. We just go, this is the way I'm going to go, this is the way I'm going to go. So if I send you back in time, which I am going to do later on, but if I send you back in time now to the same position with your knowledge, would you credit card it? Would you go, right, I'm going to pay for a coach on a credit card because I know 6 months later I'll be able to pay that back because it will rocket me forward?
Oh, that sounds... Part of me says yes, but part of me is also aware that there'll be other people listening to this kind of go, well, they... Effectively, then I'm saying, if you're unsure about it...
Yeah, but you're not talking about other people. You're talking about yourself, Joe. This is the question.
Oh, all right. Would I? If I'd have found the right... With all the knowledge that I know now, yes, I would have done.
Well, I think
it would have been a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer, because I would have done as well. But the problem that I've got, a lot of it, I've gone past now, and so I've I've moved into areas, and I'll be totally transparent with you. Where I am now, I've gone beyond where I need to be for certain people, and I haven't quite decided in my mind what I want to achieve on the next level. So I've got this very nice life where I record, I make very nice money, and it's kind of quite easy, you know. And what I want to do is break, and I am doing it, I'm breaking it all down at the moment to be able to provide maximum value for 1 million people. I've got this figure in my head of providing, you know, 1 million people with the confidence and the dream starting to get there. But doing it at a very sort of cost-effective amount. And so I'm just on a playing around at the moment, and it's quite fun. But I do think that if I had gone back in time and just paid for it, I would have got there 3 times as quick.
Yeah, but I'm also of the philosophy of one of my favourite phrases is that everything that's ever happened to you has been the perfect preparation for the person you're meant to become. So actually, I wouldn't be nearly as good with the clients that I work with and able to, you know, get where they're coming from, what it feels like to be in that struggle, what it feels like to think, what if I spend this money and they turn out to be the wrong coach? Because, you know, that happens a lot as well. You know, we don't hear about the people who spent all the money and then it didn't work. So the fact that I did do it the hard way, even though I do kind of wish I hadn't in many ways taken that long route, I did take a lot from the long route because I know the mistakes that you can make. I know some of the mindset things that are telling people, I'm not ready for this. I'm too scared for this. I can't take that leap yet. That's not for the likes of me. I get all of that. That kind of helps with the amount of empathy that I have for people. But also I can kind of go, look, I can shave 3 years off your learning curve easily. You need to talk to me. And so I can say that hand in heart because I walked that path.
So say that quote again, because in case the listeners didn't get it.
Everything that has ever happened to you is the perfect preparation for the person you are meant to be.
They're all scribbling it down. I would say no experience is wasted. That's the same kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So the fact that, you know, you and I both had corporate jobs that were sucky and we didn't like, we still learned a lot from them. If only that you learned the fact that, actually, I want to do whatever I can to make sure I'm never in that position again.
I don't think my job was sucky. I think my job was easy, really. That was the problem with me. I got to a point where I literally... because I was a training and development guy, after a while, you become a bit of a magpie, and I used to have about 100 courses that I could just do. And then they would say to me, in the early days, could you write a course on flood defences for, and I used to say, yeah, no problem. It's going to take me about 2 weeks to write that because I had to research it and build it up. But after 100 courses, I think, right, okay, I could nick a bit from that one, nick a bit from that one. Yeah, okay, it's going to take 2 weeks. Yeah, that's fine. And I could do it in about 2 hours. So I had so much free time just floating around, really, amusing myself in the office. And once you get to that point and you think to yourself, I'm really not justifying my attendance here. That was me. So it wasn't a sucky job. It just got easy. And I think that's a real killer, isn't it? So many people say to me, I was earning very good money, but God, I was bored. Or I was earning very good money, but I didn't really know what I was doing. That's another one that they say. And so you do have to get to a point when you can justify your actions. And once you start justifying your actions in an environment that you love, as we were talking about it, that's when it all starts coming together for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that when you wake up in the morning and just go, why am I doing this? I think that's when it becomes... just like, that's when it becomes really draining. So they call it, it's like the opposite of burnout. It's called rust out.
I like that. I've never heard that. Rust out. Yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's that, you're not sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey would say. And yeah, that the idea of like not having a purpose. We all need a purpose. We all need this real connection to a sense of purpose.
Well, I've got a purpose, and it's linked in with the words that this guy is going to say now, because he said these back in 2005, and they're still as valuable today. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
So does it make all the difference, Joe?
Yeah, I think so.
So when you look back on your life, where's your big dot then? Where's the moment that really was when you transitioned mentally to believing that you can do this?
I think when I first did my very first coach training. I mean, there was a moment before that when I worked for BT. I worked in a call centre, so British Telecom. And I'd never done any training. I'd never done any teaching or anything like that, and really had hated the idea of being a teacher. But there was, in the call centre, I was very, very bored in the call centre, taking calls every day, and an opportunity came up to cover one of the call centre trainers. Well, they went off on maternity leave, and so I gave it a go. And the first time I stood up in that training room, it just felt like, yes. So that was a big one. That was like, I didn't know you could do this. This was, and I think, my degree had been in drama. So before that, I had a very short-lived stint as an actress. And that whole kind of bringing together the performance things, that idea that, you're performing in a way with all of that knowledge and helping to help people to grow and to learn, even if it was, here's how to use the call center system, just felt like magic kind of coming together. And then the next stage was when I did my very first coach training program, which was about, 10 years after that, maybe. And having that first kind of coaching conversation in the training group, and just kind of go, wow, this is amazing. The change that you can help to bring about in people just by asking them some questions and being really curious and listening and holding that space for them. That was another one of those moments that kind of go, wow.
But when you were having those, wasn't there a bit of you that went, this is great. This is really easy. You can't make money from this. This is too easy.
Oh yeah. I mean, and my kind of story with coaching is I gave it a go and followed all the things that my coach school had told me to, and this is going back like 15 years ago, and then fell completely on my face because I realized that even though I loved all the coaching stuff, the business side of it was a lot harder. So gave it up, but carried on doing coaching because I just loved it so much. I didn't expect to get paid for it. I just carried on doing. That's how I really developed my craft, is because I carried on doing it for about 6, 7, 8 years without expecting any payment. I just kind of persuaded my boss in work to let me kind of coach on the side. And then I ended up coaching managers in the organization that I worked in. And then I got asked to start running some coach training programs for other people. So we had in-house coaches, and I just kept doing it. And I kept kind of almost being an internal entrepreneur, if you like, just kind of go, we should do this and we should do that. And I was just doing it purely for the love of this thing called coaching, because I could see how powerful it was and seeing the change that it made. And it didn't really occur to me that I could make a living from that, because I know my organization were paying me to do that as part of my job, but it didn't occur to me that I could run that as a business until quite a bit later. And it took a while for me to believe that, because it did come so naturally, and I loved it.
I think there's 3 stages, isn't there, really? Or maybe 4 stages. The first stage is the kind of boredom or the rusty, whatever you said, when you're in a rust out, when you're in that situation. And then you go through the fear of, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? And then you start doing it, and you learn a lot, and you push, and you make all your mistakes, as you say, when nobody's looking. And then that 4th stage is when the mental belief comes in. I think you've got to go through 3 stages before you actually get to that point when you go, I actually think I can do this. And I think I've been making it a lot more difficult than it was. But literally, action after action after action, mistakes, failures, get back up, give it another go. Google how to. That's an amazing thing to sort of help you through. How do I do this? And how do I do that? And then that mental aspect then sort of breaks down into little sections, but that's the moment when it all comes together, when you realize that actually, I had a moment, and this is a real weird story. I was in a pub a little while ago, probably about 6 months ago, And if you're in the UK, the United Kingdom, and somebody says to you, you know, what do you do for a living? And you say podcaster, you might as well have said a pig juggler or whatever. Nobody understands what podcasting is. So I generally say, oh, I'm a chat show host. And people go, really? Are you a chat show host? Or, oh, I'm on the radio, whatever. Anyhow, I was in this pub and this guy was chatting to my mate. And we were just talking, never met him before. And he was saying, yeah, I do a lot of commuting, he said. So I'm in the car for a lot. And I said, so what do you have? Radio 2 on all the time? He said, well, I used to, but now I do podcasts. And he said, and yeah, there's this new one that I've discovered. And I love this. I love this show. And I said, what's it called? Because, you know, being a podcaster. And I thought he was going to say everything else. He said, Join Up Dots. And I went, really? And he went, yeah. And he said, and it's funny, actually, listening to you talk, you sound a bit like the guy who does the show. And I said to him, well, actually, it's me. And he went, no, it's not. And my mate went, yeah, it is. And he got out his MP3 player and actually had to prove it was me. And it was like, honestly, Jesus was having a pint with him. And it made me realise at that time that my belief in what I was putting out to the world hadn't got to the point of what the listeners were listening to and believing. And when I realised that he actually couldn't believe that this guy sitting in the pub was creating this show and it was a professional outfit, that was one of my dots. That's when it came together, and I realised that mentally I had stepped through that door. I was ready to believe totally what I was doing because the world was already believing it. If that makes sense, Joe.
Yeah, it does. It makes total sense. And I it's almost like you need a bit of an identity upgrade. So you know, to totally own what you're doing, we do need sometimes those little reminders. And it's funny. It's like me being invited to I was talking about the podcasting conference, and I was invited to it, and it was actually in Manchester, and I just went, oh no, that's not for the likes of me, that's for like proper podcasters. And then hearing afterwards if somebody went, and just like, no, you would have been total kind of grandma there, because most people were just starting out. But in my head, I wasn't a proper podcaster. It's like at the time in my head, I wasn't, you know, a proper bona fide kind of coach. And I think you do need sometimes to have those almost identity upgrades so that you can say, yeah, I'm, it's not just what is going, because it's weird if you're putting stuff out there, and it must be a little bit, you know, how actors talk about the difference between being on stage and being on TV or doing film, is that if you're on stage, the feedback is immediate. When we're online, that feedback can take quite a while, and sometimes it's a bit mixed, and sometimes, you know, you're just relying on comments that people have left. Whereas that having that conversation with someone just out of the blue, when they're just talking, and you know they're not trying to impress you because they don't know it's you. And when he's talking to you about how much he likes your podcast, that I think is one of those moments that kind of almost jolts you out of the mental belief system that you've got going on.
Yeah, I think so. And it certainly was good for me. He didn't ask for a selfie or an autograph. That annoyed me. Can you not? I wonder if podcasts, probably John Lee Dumas, he gets selfies left, right and centre, I imagine. But the rest of us, we're just hidden away. But if you are looking, and this is to the listeners, if you're looking for a bloody good show, we haven't really touched on this, but Joe, go over to iTunes and tap in Joe Casey, Casey, and you'll love it. It's a great listen. She's a lovely lady, and she delivers from the heart, and you can hear that on the show. It's a really good listen. Well, this is the end of the show now, and this is the part when we're going to send Joe back in time to have a one-on-one with her younger self. And if she could go back in time and speak to the young Joe, what age would she choose and what advice would she give? Well, we're going to find out what it is, because I'm going to play the theme tune, and when it fades, she's up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic. The Sermon on the Mic.
So this is me talking to 21-year-old Joe, and I want to say, stop worrying so much. It's all going to be fine. It doesn't matter what that nasty boss thinks of you. It doesn't matter how much you weigh. It doesn't matter that that report came back with feedback on it. It was just feedback. I know you've taken that as a load of criticism and another example of how you're failing at this job, but it's not. It's just feedback. Take what you need from it, drop the rest. The things that you're good at, the things that you are really enjoying, they're going to be the key to what you need to do. Follow those. Follow the things that light you up. And remember, there's no failure. It's only feedback. So whatever happens, take what you can learn from it and move on. You're doing fine.
Brilliant stuff. And Joe, just before I ask the question, no, I'm going to ask the question and I'm going to build up. This is a good question and I'm going to bring this right in at the end of the show. So this is going to be the last question. It's popped into my head. But before then, what's the number one best way that our audience can connect with you?
If they go to joecasey.com, so that's JOCASEY.com. You can find out, that's kind of my home hub. You can find out about the podcast there. If you're a coach and you're wanting to connect with other coaches, I also have a Facebook group which you can find out details there. And, you know, if you're a coach, health coach, holistic practitioner, heart-centered service professional, check out my articles and things on there, because there's loads of stuff to help you build a business that's going to feel good but also be really effective.
Great stuff. Joe, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots, and please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Joe Casey, thank you so much.
Thank you. That's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it.
Right, here's the question then, just before I let you go. What would you rather do? Stand up now and sing some Smith songs or explain your theory on substitute teachers? What are you going to go with?
Oh. Okay, I'm going to go with the Smith song then.
Go on in.
Okay. Another sunny day and I'll meet you at the cemetery gate. Oh, I can't remember any of the words, but will that do?
That's all right. I was hoping you went with the substitute teachers. Joe, you've been great. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. And that was Joe Casey with a singing voice available for bar mitzvahs, weddings, funerals, whatever you want her to sing. As long as it's the Smiths, she'll come out and do it for you. But hopefully you enjoyed that episode, because it was one that was a very sort of kindred spirit to me. But it proves the point that if you can do something and you're willing to work at it and you're willing to get over those obstacles and those failures that we all have at the very beginning, you can get to a point where your life is very nice indeed. And that's what we want for you guys. Get out there and have a good life. You know, stop moaning about what you're doing and go for it, because you're the only one that can make it happen. Thanks as always for listening to Join Up Dots. This was David Ralph, and that was episode 485. See you again. Bye-bye.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.